Welcome to the Varsity Voices podcast, where every week we bring you the inside information and insight on Chicago Catholic League football. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and like us on wherever you're listening from. And you can also find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League Sports. Also, feel free to leave us a comment or email us at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. I'm Joe Frevaletti, and here with me is my co-host, Dan Frevaletti. Dan, we're here today to talk about something a little bit different than our last several episodes, which have all been interviews from the coach's office with the different coaches throughout the Chicago Catholic League. Today we're going to talk about the first games of the year, right? For some of the teams, we're going to look at the Orange division, the Blue division, and the Green division, right? And the different teams within the conference, and who they're playing, and we'll do a little bit of a review of those teams as well as maybe some predictions. What do you think about that?
It's good. It's good. We're 11 days away. So it's time. It's time to start looking at some of these games in week one. I know we kind of breezed through the non-conference schedule for these teams early on in our broadcast history, but this will be good to dive a little deeper into and look at week one, and start to get an idea of how these teams will look to kick off the season.
Yeah, and you said 11 days away. What does that mean?
Friday Night Blitz.
Yeah, we got something coming up. Friday Night Blitz.
Yep, Friday night, August 29th. We will be covering the game. So again, we will be on probably around, what did we think, 9 o'clock-ish? Joe, that was...
Yeah, I'm thinking around 9 or so.
Yeah.
You can... Yeah.
We'll catch people up. We're going to catch people up on what we've seen, covering the games and watching some of the broadcasts where we'll give people scores, and then we'll take it to about, half hour after the games end and let people phone in if they want, be part of the podcast. We're going to do it live. People can come on and chat. If you want to be a correspondent for the game, make sure you reach out to us on social media. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be crazy. The season starts on Thursday, actually, Thursday the 29th, but Friday the 30th is when we'll be broadcasting. I may have said the 29th.
Yeah, Thursday the 29th, and we talked about this a little earlier. That's actually when, is that Mount Carmel and Hun?
Mount Carmel and the Hun.
Yeah.
Out of New Jersey.
We'll talk about them a little bit in this episode. Yeah, but Friday the August 30th, for sure, we're doing the Friday Night Blitz episode. It's going to be live. It's going to be streamed to X and to Facebook and to YouTube. So you'll have multiple ways to watch and listen. And like Dan said, we'd love to have people involved from a standpoint of being correspondents, either calling in, getting on the show, or coming in and just leaving some messages, some chat messages. The more people we have, you're giving us information, the better. So if you're interested in doing that, make sure you reach out to us.
Should be fun. It should be a lot of fun, and I hope we have some participation. But either way, it's going to be great content and great for people who are interested in what's going on around the Catholic League and knowing what their future opponents are doing, and people within the conference, the greater conference. So there's a lot of great games. I'm excited to talk about some of these.
Yeah. So let's get to that, Dan. So let's talk about the Orange division first, and let's go right to Providence. Since in our last episode, and this goes back a ways, we touched a little bit on the non-conference games, and our bad, we were remiss and we did not talk about Providence. So we feel like we've got to give them their due this time.
Yeah, that was a miss early on. Really, we're still not pros, but we really weren't pros when we were doing that. We
Right.
were pretty green, just trying to navigate our way through doing a podcast. So, no excuses, no excuses though. We should have talked about Providence, and our bad for not doing that. So yeah, Joe, let's start with them. They open week 1 with Wheaton North, traditional powerhouse program, big school. It should be a great game. Wheaton North always has a great mix of skill and size. Traditionally, I think they like to play to their personnel. If they're big and have a good back, they will pound the football when they can. So I'm expecting a lot out of this game.
Yeah, I am too. And, I suppose you could say last year, Wheaton North, even though they had a good season again, right? Maybe a little bit down for them, considering, where they've been years previous to last year. But, this is going to be a difficult game, or it's going to be an exciting game, with two really good teams, and Wheaton North obviously plays in a tough conference. So does Providence. Wheaton North has some really good returning players on both sides of the ball. So does Providence. So
Yeah.
this is going to be an interesting matchup in week 1.
Yeah, Providence is loaded with skill, led by Gavin Hagan at running back and DB. He's also a very, very dangerous kick returner, Division I kid that makes plays all over the field. Providence brings back Xavier Coleman at wide receiver, and their expectations are for a state championship. So they make no bones about it. We're going to say that several times over the course of these next few episodes, but they're legitimately a state championship contender from week 1.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Providence lost. Let's see. The last time I think Providence played Wheaton North was 2 years ago. They didn't play them last year. I think they played them the year before. Providence lost to Wheaton North in that game. But my feeling is that's a different Providence team, right? From who they're going to be facing this year for sure. Providence was young, and they brought some of these kids along over the last couple of years. So they've got some rising juniors and some really really talented seniors on this year's team. So it's going to be a different story this time, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Providence. I think they go to Wheaton and pull this one out. That being said, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be nip and tuck, and I think it's probably going to be really exciting. A great way to kick off the season, and a great non-conference opponent for Providence.
Yeah, I think the same thing, except I think I'm going to go with Wheaton North in this one, Dan. I think with the schedule, or what they both got returning, and what they've done over the last couple years, I think Wheaton North might just have a little bit too much for Providence this year. But if anything, it's going to be a really good game for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And boy, they're really going to hate us, Joe. So we forget about them, and then you pick against them. So I want that noted for the record. That's Joe Freveletti.
Hey, I'm not throwing any shade towards Providence. I think they're going to have a really good year.
Your integrity's intact.
Yes, I think the first game here against going up against Wheaton North, I just think it might be a little too much for them this early in the season. But hey,
I feel a lot of pushback coming. Yep, I feel pushback coming. I feel the chat line lighting up. You guys suck. A lot from the Mokina area. So
right, good thing
Frankfurt, Mokina.
I'm not telling anybody where I live. But good thing I'm not anywhere close to that. Right.
There you go. Watch your car.
Yeah, but I do have friends who are Providence alums, and they follow Providence programs. So, and I know they listen.
Like it. Yep.
Yeah. So they're going to give me a hard time for sure. But, anyways. All right, so that's Providence, and so let's move on to let's move on to Notre Dame, the other team in the Orange Division, and their first game this year is within the Chicago Catholic League, not within their division, but they're going up against St. Pat's.
Yeah, rivalry game. And we had a chance to talk to Luke Mertens. He's excited about the group they have coming up. Feels like they've kind of been building to this year with this group of talent that they have. So their expectation is to be a playoff team. Both these teams come off, what they would consider subpar years, I'm sure, and want to get back to the playoffs. So that's going to be a huge game, not only because of the rivalry, but just because of how both teams want to start.
Yeah, and I really put these two teams at kind of even, right? Neither of them had the year they wanted to have last year, but both teams will talk about or will mention how they feel they were young, right?
Yep.
And they've got some really good players returning from last year's teams on both offense and defense. I think last year Notre Dame won this game. They played St. Pat's and they beat them 24-14. But you mentioned, we talked to Coach Mertens from St. Pat's, and they've got some big players returning, and they've got big ambitions this year, right, to improve on last year. So I think they're going to be a tough opponent for Notre Dame in the first game.
Yeah, I do too. And in fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and pick St. Pat's. I think this year they kind of have some things come together, and I'll be excited to see how this game goes. I love the coaching staff at Notre Dame, and really good guys, Coach Hennessy, defensive coordinator Dan DeFranza. I think they've always done a really good job. I don't know if the coaching staff is still intact. I know Coach Hennessy is still there, but I think St. Pat's has some things building, and I think they may turn around last year's score.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one, Dan. I'm going to pick St. Pat's as well. Again, no shade towards Notre Dame, right?
Right.
But St. Pat's, I think, has got some things working this year. They've got some key players in place, some really key positions that are coming back, and I think that's gonna make a difference for them, especially in this first game. So I'm gonna go with St. Pat's as well on this one.
All right. On to
who you want to
go
Marist.
To next? Marist.
Let's go to Marist.
All right.
Yeah. And their first opponent this year is Morgan Park in week
big time.
1.
That's big time Chicago Catholic League. Morgan Park they've got 2, possibly 3 D1 defensive backs, junior wide receiver Nasir Rankin, who has multiple Power 5 offers. They're loaded. They love to score. They typically come out and they can really, really score a ton of points in a hurry. Marist is in I guess you can call it a little transition. Mike Fitzgerald comes back to Marist, where he was the OC under Pat Dunn, had a ton of success there, went to York and just did one of the great coaching jobs in the state over the past several years in turning a York program around from a team that struggled to make the playoffs into a perennial power in 8A. So that this is going to be a really good game. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this one, Joe?
My thoughts are, I was looking at, who Morgan Park has coming back on both sides of the ball from last year's team, which was, I think Morgan Park was 10-2 last year, 7-0 in their conference. And they've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players returning on offense as starters. And then they've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of their defensive starters are coming back as well. So, a team that went 10-2 last year and has that number of starters coming back. They also, the key key position, obviously, on offense is quarterback. Their quarterback is returning, looking to have a big year. He's gotten better and better every year. I think Morgan Park, they score a ton of points usually. I think they're going to be as good, if not better, than last year's team. So, I think this is going to be a really tough, tough opponent for Marist in the first game. And, I think it might be Morgan Park might be a little bit too much for Marist at this point, Dan. So I'm going with Morgan Park on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I know Marist has Brad Fitzgibbon, Iowa D-line recruit, kind of headlines and anchors that team. Captain, maybe a 2-year captain. So just a great anchor for Marist. I think they're going to have a lot of success. I think this game probably leans towards Morgan Park as well. But what we can't discount is one of the true great home field advantages in high school football, and that's at Marist.
That's true. Yes.
There is definitely something there. When you go play there, it is not an easy place to play. So I think it's a tight game. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter, and I think Morgan Park's maybe experience and explosive playmakers makes a difference here.
Yeah, and Morgan Park, I think their 2 losses last year. We said they were 10-2. Their 2 losses came against Chicago Catholic League teams. I think they lost to Mount Carmel, and then they lost to St. Francis in the playoffs. But like you said, Dan, I think they might have a little too much firepower this year, and they may be able to turn that around, or I think they're going to be able to turn that around right in game 1 and probably get a win here against Marist in game 1.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Orange Division still. Let's go to Joliet Catholic, the last team in the Orange Division. Their first game this year is against team from Iowa City. Now that's a storied high school program in Iowa. Always is a handful as far as their conference is concerned, and even within the state as well in the playoffs. I think Iowa City last year was 6-4, maybe, and they played Joliet Catholic last year in the first game of the season. Now Joliet Catholic won that game pretty easily. They beat them 48-13. So, even though Iowa City is got the reputation in Iowa as the type of program that they are, and it's a deserved reputation, I think, coming to Joliet Catholic and playing them here is definitely a step up in competition for them. So I think it's going to be tough for Iowa City to get by Joliet Catholic.
Yeah, and it's interesting. JCA returns a lot, but they're breaking a new quarterback. But their goal is always a state championship. And I think they every year they say they want to try and be more diverse on both sides of the ball, but they've got a great offensive line, D1 guys all over. But they're going to be powered by their running game. I think Iowa City is kind of a high-powered offense, score a ton of points everywhere outside of Joliet Catholic last year.
Right.
But I feel the same way. I think Joliet Catholic is it's storied program here, tied with Mount Carmel for the most state championships. So I think JCA wins probably in a similar type of game. I do think that while they're talking about being more diverse, I think they will lean on that offensive line and pound the football, time of possession, all those things that Joliet Catholic does really well forever and ever. And I think they kind of walk away with this one.
Yeah, and how could you not lean on that offensive line when you look at them stacked up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough not to just say, you know what, we are going to run the ball and we are going to run it behind these 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, I always tell people Joliet Catholic is like the one school that can come up to the line of scrimmage and say, we're going to run this play right here. They're like the Larry Bird of the Chicago Catholic League, right. And we dare you to stop it, yeah. So yeah, I think my pick is for JCA in this one.
All right. Yep, me too. So we're in agreement on that one, Dan.
Okay.
So, All right, so that's the Orange division, and let's move on to the Green division.
All
And
right.
let's see, where do we want to start here? Let's start with St. Rita, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, St. Rita, the first game against Sandburg, right? St. Rita's coming back. They had a good year last year, 8-5 overall. I think they won the Prep Bowl, right?
Yeah. Prep Bowl champs.
But they were 0-3, in their division last year. So they had some trouble with some of the better teams in the conference. Now Sandburg, they had a decent year last year, 6-4 overall, 3-1 in their conference. Last year, they lost to St. Rita in the first game. So I think this is going to be a pretty evenly matched game. And when you look at who the two teams have coming back from last year's teams, who were both pretty successful, it's pretty even there too. But Sandburg, and looking at some of the information or some of the news that's out there, that they've got big expectations there this year.
Yeah, they do. They're led by a Division I recruit, Indiana's Indiana bound O lineman Matt Merrick. They returned their quarterback and wide receiver. St. Rita, had one of the strangest seasons in of anyone in the state last year. So they beat JCA and St. Lawrence, right? So they had two semifinalists in state finals games. And then they receive a terrible draw, drawing Mount Carmel week 1 of the playoffs. But then they go on to win the Prep Bowl, but finish 0-3 in the division. So, it's really important for them to get off to a great start. But Sandburg, Joe, researching a little bit, they opened my eyes a little bit. They do have a lot returning. They do have high expectations. They've got a really solid coaching staff. So this one's going to be a lot for St. Rita.
Yeah, and where is this game at? Is this at Rita or Sandburg? Do you know?
Let me look here real quick. This game is at St. Rita.
This is at Rita. So, that obviously always can make a little bit of a difference, right?
Yeah.
In what you're
I just wonder how much difference that makes. But it's not like the NFL, right, where it's 3 points in Vegas. But
right, and it's not like you're coming from another state either.
Yeah,
and,
that's an easy commute for the Sandburg folks. But yeah, Joe, I have Sandburg winning this one. I think they are going to have it's a great to have a bunch of seniors back that lost the year before. So you highlight this in block letters, you do the whole public versus private, you've got a lot of stuff that you can build up, and then you've got the players to back it up, so it's not just bluster at that point. They've got the talent. So I have Sandburg winning this one in week 1. But we'll see. It really looks like a toss up.
Yeah, it is. It is a toss up, but I've got Sandburg too, Dan. I think that's probably the right call here. Now, obviously, you got to play the games, right?
Yeah,
yeah. But give Sandburg credit too. I mean, they've scheduled St. Rita week 1, Mount Carmel week 2. Yeah. So they're all in on getting themselves up to speed and getting themselves up to speed very quickly.
Yeah, we've talked to a few coaches who talk about how calloused the word they use the Catholic League is, and that's clearly what Sandburg's trying to do. They kind of want to see what the top competition is like before they get into their conference schedule. So I give them a lot of credit for building this schedule and saying, bring it on. So it's going to be one of the more exciting games of week 1.
It is. It'll be a good game to watch. So, hopefully we can watch them all in Friday Night Blitz, Dan.
Yeah. That'll be one to follow for sure.
For sure. All right. So that's St. Rita. So let's go to the next team in the Green Division, and that's IC Catholic. Interesting here, Dan, with IC and their non-conference schedule for their first 2 games. So they've scheduled Roe Clark Math and Science Academy for their first game. It's college prep school. I don't believe they're in an actual IHSA conference. I believe they play in the Noble League with some other schools like Pritzker College Prep, UIC College Prep, Roanoke College Prep, Hansbury College Prep. So, that is that's where they're at, right? Last year they went 4-4. I'm guessing they have not seen a team of IC's caliber for a while.
Yeah, and I know they've struggled with numbers in the past, so some of these games early on, the challenge with trying to find a schedule that keeps you healthy for the Catholic League and gives your guys some experience, because I think if Noble or if Roe Clark fields a team, I think I see kind of can put this one in the win column. But boy, you'd hate to have a game like this, not happen because of numbers. And, that's what because it's not the NFL, right? There's not 4 and 5 year contracts. You've got kids who have prepared and worked to play a game week one. And if that game, if they have to forfeit for some reason or another, that would be awful for the kids.
Yeah, it would be, right. And a lot of times we don't think of that, but you're a former coach, right? For 15 years or so.
Yeah.
So it's
right
interesting. It's interesting to me to hear you say that, because for me it's like, oh, all right. I'm looking IC Catholic. First of all, if they play this game, it's going to be, I think it's just going to be a blowout, right?
Yeah.
But what I didn't think about was the effect that it might have on your team and your kids, right? As far as, what if this game doesn't happen? What if it does happen and it's, 75-0 or something?
Right.
That's not all that great either, as far as your team is concerned and the players.
Yeah. And they look at the big deal we're making out of it, right? Week one, we're doing this. We want to follow all these games. It's a huge deal. I always call it, like many others, Christmas in the fall. That's how it feels to you when you're coaching. And I guarantee the kids, coaches, parents are in discussions with one another and that school. Is this game going to happen? Are we going to be there? Are we on? Are we not on? What's going on? Do we have to find someone else and scramble? So I'm hoping that the game happens. But we'll have to see how it goes. And either way, I chalk it up as a victory for IC.
Yeah, me too. All right. So let's move on to Nazareth Academy. Their first game this year is against Kankakee. So this is going to be a really good game too, I think.
Yeah. Couple year contract, and I think last year was a great high scoring game. Kankakee pulled out, right?
Yeah, Kankakee pulled it out 33-26. That's right in the first game of the year. And the other thing, I mean, Kankakee, always a good program. I think last year they were 11-1, 7-0 in the conference. Can score a ton of points. They showed that. I think last year they averaged over 45 points a game. So, I think this is going to be a shootout. Now, we've had the opportunity to look a little bit or to talk. We had the opportunity to interview Coach Racky from Naz, and their defense is going to be tough.
Yeah, they're really good
for sure. So I'm not sure you can expect as high a score, as many points as Kankakee is used to scoring, but they're going to put some points on the board for sure.
Yeah, and I mean it's at Nazareth this year, and for a team that won the state championship and returns all the people that Nazareth returns, it's funny. I don't have anything to back this up, but it feels like they're overlooked a little bit. I feel like they're a top 5 team in the state.
You're talking Naz right now?
I'm talking Naz. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Naz is loaded. I think they've got great players. They've got a ton of high level college talent. on that roster. So I think they're going to be outstanding. But Kankakee is used to winning and scoring, so it'll be exciting and one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. And last year you can say Naz was a little young,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's the first game of the year for them. They lose, score a lot of points, but they do end up losing. But we see what Naz did over the course of the season last year, and some of those young players coming along, and how that ended up for them,
right,
which was really good. And the other thing that I think is in Naz's favor maybe is they know what they're in for
right.
this year, right?
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah,
last
good
year,
call.
everybody knows, how good Kankakee is and what they've done, for the last several years. But I don't think you're going to catch Naz sleeping this year in the first game of the season.
No, and Kankakee probably would say, "Hey, we don't care, right? Let them be wide awake." But I think they had a couple great classes that they had been pointing to for a while. They knew those classes were going to be great. This is Coach Miles Osei's second year, I think, there at Kankakee.
Right. Yep.
Great coach, a lot of experience. NFL player. So I think they've, like I said, they have become used to winning, and they fully expect to go into LaGrange Park and beat Naz. But my pick is going to be for Nazareth, just because I think so highly of their team.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Nazareth too on this. I went back and forth over the last 24 hours and looking at some of the stuff here. I looked at Kankakee. They pretty much dominated every game last year. They ended up losing to St. Louis, which is not anything that you should be all that upset about.
No,
losing to East St. Louis.
No.
But I think I agree with you. I think Naz has just a little too much this year. They've got a lot coming back. Another year under their belts as far as for some of these players who are going to be at the top of their game this year. So I think Naz wins this one, and probably in a close one again.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Naz. All right. The last team in the green division is St. Francis. So last year, St. Francis, awesome year. I think 10-3 overall. They lost, last game of the year, state championship game to Naz, but this year, their first game is against Kenwood from the Chicago Public League in the, I think the Red Division or Red Conference. So Kenwood always puts together a very good team.
Mm-hmm.
They can score a lot of points. Last year they were 8-5. They were 6-1 in their conference play. As far as them going up against the Chicago Catholic League, I think they played Rita twice last year. They lost both times, but they lost to them during the regular season, and then they lost to them in the Prep Bowl. But Kenwood always puts a good team on the field, and they're going to score some points.
Yeah, and St. Francis is interesting because, like a lot of teams we talk to, there are some struggles with some overall numbers, but boy, with the guys they've got high level D1 athletes all over the field. They should be in really good shape. And Kenwood is, like you mentioned, a high level team from the Chicago Public League Red Division, and their big game is Morgan Park each year. They've lost some talent over the course of the last year, but they've got a legacy that says that they're going to be able to replace that. I think week one on the blue field probably leads to a St. Francis victory here. I don't know. Again, I never know how much the home and away matters, but I think in this instance, St. Francis returning a lot of studs and having guys all over is too much for Kenwood week one.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna go with St. Francis on this one, and them being at home, week one, I think will probably make a little bit of a difference too. So I'm going with St. Francis on this one as well, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's a good call there. So let's see. We've got the green going. Do we 3-1?
Got Francis, Naz, IC. Yeah, we've got 3-1 in the green.
Okay.
And what did we go in the orange? We had Joliet Catholic winning. We have Marist losing.
Yeah, we both had Marist losing. So you had the division going 2-2.
Right.
Maybe, and then I had them also going 2-2. You may have had them going 1-3, right? Because the Notre Dame and St. Pat's.
Yeah, you had to bring that up again,
Sorry.
didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Joe had them going.
Joe said this.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the blue.
Let's move on to the blue, and let's start with St. Ignatius. So they are, let's see, St. Ignatius, they are playing St. Louis University for the first game of the year. The school, St. Louis, is considered somewhat of a dynasty in the St. Louis area. Last year, I think they were 7-5. They were 2-2 in their district or division, and that was considered a bit of a down year for them. St. Ignatius, and we had a chance to talk with Coach Miller on this, and they've got a lot of returning players from that team last year, which was really successful. Made it all the way to the 8A finals game. I think they're itching to get going again this year and get back on track. And I think they're probably going to be way too much for St. Louis University to handle.
Yeah, St. Louis University plays. They play a great schedule. They play. When you know teams that they play, just from kind of you hear about recruits and teams from St. Louis being solid teams and from other areas of the country. So they play Christian Brothers, Cardinal Ritter, who is the power in that they lost to twice last year. It's going to be a great barometer game for St. Ignatius, whose goals are state championship, right? That's not our words, but coaches. That's where their expectation is. This is a great week 1 game. I'm also going to pick St. Ignatius in this one. I just think I think they'll probably have too much for St. Louis. Again, St. Louis is a high octane offense. St. Ignatius knows exactly what to do against those teams, and that's just control the football,
right.
3 to 4 yards at a time, and make sure that St. Louis is doing their responsibilities on defense. And the minute they don't, big play, 60-yard touchdown. So I think that'll pose a problem for St. Louis. Tough to prepare for the triple option week 1 at any time, really. But week 1 seems to be like, even though you have a little more time, you're kind of thinking big picture. You're trying to install your defense, and then you've got to make some of these changes and talk about different responsibilities, after you've spent the summer or 2 weeks in preseason, installing your defense. So I think that's a lot to ask. So I'm going with St. Ignatius in this one.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a lot to ask. You're right. I mean, they've got their defense that they like to run and they install, and then now first game of the year, you got to face a triple option. So everything we've been telling you for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We'd like you to forget some of that, and now let's focus on this, right?
Right.
That's always tough to do from a coaching perspective and from a team performance perspective too. So, and again, if this makes a difference, it's at St. Ignatius, team coming up all the way up from St. Louis. Who knows if they come up that morning, come the night before or the day before. But I think that'll make a difference here, too. So I'm going with St. Ignatius as well, Dan.
All right. 1-0 to start.
All right. So now we've got Brother Rice. And Brother Rice, the first game of the year, plays Phillips, right?
Yeah. Phillips week 1. So, Phillips might not be the program that they were, several years ago. I guess it's going to be 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where they kind of bullied their way to a state title, had a 3 or 4 year run where they were deep, perennial deep playoff team. But they are a great test week one for Brother Rice. Brother Rice has Division I talent in Christian Pierce, but he's coming off an ACL. They've got a sophomore D line, Braden Parks, who's going to be a high end Division I. Already has interest and offers from Power 5 conferences. So, and they also will be breaking in a new running back, Tyler Lofton, transfer from Marian Catholic. So I'm sure that their idea, if we were to ask their coach, now we didn't get a chance to interview Coach Wedenfield from Brother Rice, but I would bet that he would tell us on your question of what do you want to talk about a year from now, what would be, he's going to say state championship. So I think they feel like they've got that level of talent. And so I look for them to start really in a strong fashion week one. And I'm thinking they're going to be able to beat Phillips.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think you just hit right on it, Dan. I mean, Brother Rice, they've got some D1 talent, coming back, and a fair amount of it as well. And Phillips is not quite the team that they were, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, they're middle of the pack in their conference now, and they always have some real talented players on their team, right? Who are worthy of D1 as well. But I think Brother Rice is just going to be way too much to handle for Phillips. And, I would look for this game to be, not a blowout, but I think double digit win here for Brother Rice over Phillips.
Yeah, Brother Rice could be really exciting. They're going to be someone that hard to say Brother Rice bursts onto the scene with Brother Rice, but they are going to be fun to watch because of some of the things that they have and new faces that you'll see, along with Christian Pierce, who was out for most of the season last year, and so they're going to be an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, they are for sure. All right, so let's move on to Mount Carmel. And their first game of the year this year is against a team from Princeton, New Jersey called Hun High School, HUN, which I think is my favorite name for a high school, as of now.
Right? I went to the Hun. Yeah. When you're telling your buddies in college, where'd you go? I went to the Hun. Ooh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. And obviously for those who don't know Hun High School in New Jersey, they are an outstanding team. From New Jersey. I think they went 8-1 last year. And their wins, they averaged over a 30-point differential in the teams that they played. They are the team in New Jersey in that area, right? And they send multiple kids, I think minimum 6, 7 kids a year signing with high level, Power 5, Power 4 D1 schools, so they've got a ton of talent. So they are going to be a real test for Mount Carmel.
Yeah, and the Hun features, Kamar Archie, I'm reading about. He's got multiple offers just from kind of low level scroungy schools like Georgia, Florida, Miami, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a match of two powerhouse programs. Very cool to get a game like this scheduled. It's bragging rights for Chicago football versus, I don't know what the Hun would identify more. They're literally, I like maps, Joe. So I went on the map and I looked, and you can almost split the difference between New York City and Philadelphia to where the Hun is. So I don't know which they identify more, but at the very least, it's Midwest, versus East Coast. So there's some bragging rights there. I know that that would mean something to me as a player and a coach. And I'd want to represent. I'd feel like I'm representing more than Mount Carmel, that day. They're going to be the first game, so they're on Thursday night. So that's kind of exciting. We can follow, and we'll probably talk about that on Friday Night Blitz. But so it should be quite an appetizer for Illinois high school football fans.
Yeah, so Mount Carmel, we've been talking about Hun and everything that they have, and why they're such a formidable opponent. But let's look at Mount Carmel, right?
Yeah.
Last year's 7A state champs.
Maybe it goes unsaid, right, Joe?
Right.
Everyone just assumes, yeah.
Yeah. So, this this game to me is one of the most interesting ones of the first week in the Chicago Catholic League. As well as who we're going to talk about next, Loyola, but Loyola and East St. Louis. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this game. But I think Mount Carmel, even though the reputation of Hun is what it is, and the amount of players they have, they tout as far as the talent and D1 type player and prospect. I mean, if you say Hun has 6 or 7 a year, how many does Mount Carmel have a year?
Yeah,
right?
I would think probably similar, right? If not more, yeah. They're loaded. They're loaded again. They're going to be great. They are going to really, really be a polished football team, and they will come out and look at. I'm pretty confident of that week 1. So, even though we talked a lot about what Hun features, Mount Carmel will still be my pick for this week, because I just think they are so loaded. I think they are so battle tested. They don't have, they win games a lot to a little very often as well. But I think the level of competition is such that Mount Carmel is going to be battle tested, even though it's week 1.
Yeah, and that's the key word for me too, Dan. When I looked at this game, I was thinking, is this a toss-up? Maybe, but then when I looked at the level of competition that Hun plays in their conference schedule, they beat every team by 30 points.
Yeah.
Right. Mount Carmel, they can put up the points as well, and they beat a lot of teams. But I just think the competition that they face is probably a lot higher than maybe what Hun faces. And you're right, they're battle tested.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun though. I'm glad it's on Thursday, even though I'd love to cover it on Friday Night Blitz. We still can talk about it, but it'll be fun to be able to focus on that game, and hopefully it's broadcast somewhere. I wonder if it's one of these, that sometimes they get. I didn't see it being nationally broadcast, but maybe it will be on one of the ESPNs.
I'm not sure about that. I did
it's made
see,
for it.
I think it's going to be on NFHS. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a home game for Mount Carmel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be covered by by NFHS here in Illinois. So that'll be good. Hopefully we can watch it.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, so last team in the blue division, and last team that we're going to be covering in this episode is Loyola Academy. And I have to say, out of all the games, and we haven't covered the other divisions yet, but out of all the first games of the year, this one I am most excited about. Loyola going up against East St. Louis.
Yeah, it is Clash of the Titans, right? Week 1. I mean, both teams have ridiculous schedules. But this game is like a state championship game, and it's kind of something that people want, and have talked about. I don't ever see it happening, but if you had a week 15, would it be, where state champions played one another, and you could get another Mount Carmel Loyola, but you could also get East St. Louis and somebody else, and that's the type of game this is. It's on a neutral field, Redbird Stadium, on the campus of Illinois State. I wouldn't be surprised if there's between 5 and 10,000 people there. Just because
right.
people are so excited for that. We've seen firsthand how East St. Louis can travel. And I imagine Loyola fans will show up in droves as well. Loyola boasts what has to be the best coaching staff in Illinois when you've got, the ex-coach John Holisek coming back as an assistant, a volunteer assistant. And Pat Fitzgerald, former Division I coach, winningest coach in Northwestern history, coming to serve as a volunteer assistant. You're kind of loaded, and not to say anything about, and then what Loyola's got on the field, so they do graduate a lot on defense, but they have Donovan Robinson, Washington recruit, returning. They are always so deep. They've got players on top of players. They're really well coached. So I expect there to be little drop off defensively. East St. Louis is led by DB Charles Bass, who's I think going to Missouri. But we have seen kind of East St. Louis, their kryptonite over the past couple of years. Cary Grove has gotten them twice in recent history by a ground and pound attack. And Loyola is absolutely capable of that with Fitzgerald at quarterback and Drew McPherson at running back.
Sure. Yep.
Both returners, both Division I players going to Iowa. They can control the clock. I expect that's what we will see. I expect Loyola to focus on really strong special teams play where they are clean and they try and make sure that they dominate on that side of the football, which doesn't get talked about enough. I know that's a big thing for Loyola, is that they want to dominate you on special teams, and I think they've got the ability to do that. But so while it's going to be an awesome game, I think it's Loyola's game this year.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned dominate. Where else? The other place that Loyola is going to dominate is on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's going to make a huge difference in this game. We know East St. Louis can score. We know they've got a ton of talent at a lot of the skill positions. And maybe they've got even more talent at the skill positions, right? And some of them than Loyola might have. But if games are won up front, in the line at the line of scrimmage, looking at what Loyola has on both offensive line and defensive line and what they've got coming back, I think you're right. I think they are just going to try and grind this out and pound the ball, on East St. Louis, and I think they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's my prediction for this one. So Loyola winning would give us, Joe, a 4-0, our first 4-0 pick. So no one can accuse us of being homers. I mean, we are, but
we are. To some extent we are, but
right. But the I think the blue division steps up, and they're one now. We've only covered half of the conference, so we can see if there's other divisions that look like they're going to go 4-0. But the blue division is one that I think handles its business week one.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think we're 4-0. I don't know what that makes us for these three divisions. Over 500 for sure, but we'll see. We've got three other divisions to cover, which we'll do in our next episode. We've got the purple, the white, and the red, and we'll go through those in our next episode. So, that's it for this episode. Make sure you tune in for the next one, where we'll bring you the three other divisions that we just talked about and the first games and our predictions for those games. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, or like us on wherever you're listening from. Remember, we're on X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also email us at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in as always, and make sure you come back and listen to our next episode.